Good evening, everyone. I am the Mayor, Chris Rayburn. I'd like to welcome you to this Council meeting, the 20th of March 2021. This meeting is held in accordance with the Strathbogie Shire's Governance Rules and Ministerial Good Practice Guidelines, MGPG-1, for virtual meetings. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land which we are meeting. I pay my respects to their elders past and present. Outline on how the meeting will work tonight. I'm pleased to announce this will be the last meeting where our public gallery will be closed. As of next month, in line with COVID-19 social distancing regulations set by the state government, we will be able to have members of the public sitting in the gallery. After more than a year, this will be a welcome sight for all of us, I'm sure. Even though our gallery will be open again next month, we will continue to live stream our meetings through our website on www.strathbogey.vic.gov.au. Tonight we have a hybrid meeting with Councillor Horrigan, who will be joining us remotely up at Mount Buller. In accordance with the Ministerial Good Practice Guidelines, she will be able to be seen by everybody in this chamber and online on our screen at all times. I want to take this opportunity to outline the voting at tonight's meeting will be held by show of hands. If a councillor has a conflict of interest in a matter, they will be asked to leave the meeting and no discussion on the matter will commence until we are sure they have done so. Councillors will rejoin the meeting after the matter has been considered and voted concluded. If we have technical difficulties during tonight's meeting, which means we are unable to broadcast the public meeting, we'll adjourn the meeting for 15 minutes. If the issue is not resolved after this time, we'll extend the adjournment and even delay the consideration of unfinished business on the agenda to another day when the meeting is able to be streamed live or the public gallery opened. Reports of... Sorry, any apologies?
There are none.
Madam CEO.
There are none, Mayor.
Thank you. Disclosures of conflict of interest, councillors.
Through you, Mayor. I have a material conflict of interest, 9.20, which is the consideration of Nagambie and Euroa Caravan Park line items for the draft budget 2021-2022, as I am the director of the company Lilian Proprietary Limited, which is the lessee of the caravan park.
Thank you, councillor.
Mr Mayor, I have a conflict with item 9.5, planning applications received, a general conflict, as I am related to a party in the application.
Thank you, councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I have an interest in the Nagambie Ageing Hub at 9.18, but not a conflict. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any other interests or conflicts? If not, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting held on Tuesday, the 16th of March 2021. Like it's a councillor like to move that those minutes be received. Councillor Deputy Mayor Lykos and seconded by Councillor Sally Hayes. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Thank you. Petitions. Madam CEO, if we have any petitions this evening?
Yes, Mayor, we have received a petition from Mr George Dwyer of Euroa with 195 signatories, and I'll read the petition for you.
Thank you.
The petition is for sewerage in Euroa North to include the Friendlies Recreational Reserve, which also includes the tennis club, cricket club and guide hall, and Parker Street, Saxon Street, Boundary Road, Northern Corner, McKernan Street, also Tarcombe Road, both sides. It has been over 70 years and we are still waiting. We seek urgent support from Council to strongly urge our politicians to fast forward infrastructure funds to this project for the future of Euroa.
Thank you, Madam CEO. Councillors, under subsection 3.2.5 of Council's governance rules, we need a motion to refer the petition to the Director Tingay said the report can be prepared for council consideration around what advocacy council can initiate to address this issue at a future council meeting. Someone like to move it? Move Councillor Murray, seconded Councillor Binks. Any discussion, councillors? If not, all right. If not, all those in favour? Against, declare it carried. Thank you. Right, reports of councillors. I'll let the councillors go first tonight and then I'll go second. So which councillor would like to go first on a report on their duties? Councillor Haysbert.
We'll go around the table. I'd just like to say thanks to all the community members who came out and spoke to us regarding the Share Strathbogey sessions that we held. It was such an enriching opportunity to speak to community members, and thoroughly enjoyed learning their experiences, their stories and their visions for the future. So thank you, and there'll be more opportunities to participate if you missed out through our online hub, which is coming up soon. I won't give it away. And we will always be listening to you. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Murray.
I'd just like to echo that Councillor Hayes-Burke has alluded to in terms of the Share Strathbogey in Avenel session, that particular, which we went to, repeated that session at the market the other week. I'd also like to say that the chat sessions that I've got going are doing really well down at Avenel, and I called in to see the sewing group down there, which was really good to see them and catch up, and they're a great bunch of people, and they'd like to get in touch with any other sewing groups around the Shire. Avenel Active meeting, I attended that on April the 14th. Indigo Power was represented there. It was a good meeting with 50 to 60 residents from Avenel in attendance, organised by Renewable Avenel Energy, which are exploring possibilities of different renewable systems down in Avenel, and I'm involved in that, and wish the other members of that group all the best. Longwood Action Group I attended on April the 6th. Once again, a great dedicated bunch of people down there. They've got Anzac Day revamped this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing the march and the service down at Longwood this coming weekend. And I congratulate the new president and new secretary of that group. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Lycos. No. Councillor Binks.
Thanks, Mayor Rayburn. Yeah, the Share Strathbogey sessions have been really great, and I've really enjoyed listening to the community and getting to do some great activities with you. Thank you all for turning up and expressing your views and opinions and wishes and desires for the future of Strathbogie Shire. Looking forward to hearing more of that. As Councillor Haysbert said, we have an online option for those that couldn't attend in person, which is a great opportunity for getting more people to share their points of view. I also attended the Avenel Active meeting with Indigo Power, and I did so as I guess the representative for the Mount Wombat World, where multiple residents have asked about the possibility of having a renewable energy hub in that part of the Shire. So it was great to learn some more about what systems are out there and what's available, and I'll be following up with some more information on that to the Rafi Tablelands Action Group and the Strathbogie Tablelands Action Group. And I too am looking forward to the Anzac Day celebrations. I'll be stepping in for Councillors Hourigan and Haysbert this weekend in Euroa as the council representative, as they won't be present due to previous commitments. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that this weekend. So thank you.
Councillor Dickinson.
I'd like to acknowledge and thank all the people who have taken the time to respond to the motion that's going to be put forward later this evening. It does show that it's created a lot of interest, and that in itself is a good thing, so we'll talk about it later on. Thank you to those people who did respond.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Okay, just a little couple of things here.
Hang on, through you, Mayor.
Oh, sorry, Christy, apologise. You weren't. I looked at Director Roth and I didn't see you, and I just kept on going. Apologise.
That's all right. I want to follow on from the rest of the councillors and say thank you to everyone that came to the Share Strathbogie. I went to the Year Roll one in Strathbogie, and it was amazing. And the amount of the community members that came up and spoke to us was fantastic. It's also been a very big month for tourism, and so I wanted to say thank you to Go Nagambie for inviting us to attend your event. The Go Fish, it was amazing, and it was really great to see Mary Ann Thomas there, the Minister for Regional Development and Agriculture, and she was lovely, and our Mayor didn't waste any time of pushing for some things for us, which was great. And also for the Euroa Music Festival, that was our first music festival in Euroa, and thankful to the Euroa member Steph Ryan for attending as well.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. For me, the team here has had a very busy couple of months working through the community engagement program to develop community vision, community plan, and our 2021-22 draft budget. We've now completed 8 face-to-face sessions in towns throughout the Shire. It's been a fantastic opportunity, and through this we've held hundreds of conversations with our community. This really important feedback will be used to inform these important documents that guide Council's work in coming years. Tonight, Council will receive the engagement report outlining the feedback. I encourage the community to read this and understand the themes and priority areas we are hearing. This feedback has already been used to inform the draft budget we will be also considering tonight. I also want to remind our community this is not the only opportunity to have your say. This Friday, we will launch our online engagement hub on www.share.strathbogie.vic.gov.au. This will be an opportunity to participate in all Council's decisions. After this, we'll start a recruitment drive for participants in our first community forum. Here we'll use deliberative engagement methods to put the decision making into your hands. It's the first time Council has ever used these engagement methods, and I know all councillors are looking forward to working with the participants and hearing what they have to say. I encourage everyone to follow our social media, watch our website and read our community information column in our local papers to stay up to date. I'd like to thank Claire Taranto, who has been chair of our Audit and Risk Committee for the past 10 years. Her oversight, commitment and expertise in ensuring sound governance and physicality management of our organisation has been greatly appreciated. On behalf of Council and staff, I'd also like to extend my thanks to Jeff Dobson for his contribution over the last 12 months on this important committee. We are now in the final stage of recruitment process for replacement of those 2 key members, which will be very interesting people who we get back on this committee. Last and very exciting note, I'd like to announce just this morning we received a written confirmation from the Federal Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications that the fund has been approved for $1.243 million for the following projects: Rocky's Bridge in Euroa, sealing of Weir Reedy Lake roads in Kerwin's Bridge, upgrade of pool equipment and facilities at Avenel, Euroa, Volatown, Nagambie. These projects will be delivered by January 2022 and support the creation of 47 jobs during construction. There's a couple of other ones I'd like to also mention. On this Thursday coming, Thursday the 22nd, I will be standing in front of a Senate inquiry into the ARTC, representing the Shire of Strathbogie, and also before that I'll be meeting the CEO of ARTC, Mr Mark Campbell, to have a chat about our relationship with ARTC and discuss the couple of issues which we would like to emphasise with Mark personally. That's all the reports. Thank you. Now, public question time. Madam CEO.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. We have 3 questions submitted for tonight's meeting. The first question is from Laura Baker of Euroa, who asks, with the growth of developments in the Shire, I would like to know if there is a developer contribution plan or sufficient planning policies that ensure that developers or large-scale subdivision owners are providing in-kind support, funding, and or infrastructure that meets the needs of the future of our community. And in response, thank you for your question, Ms. Baker. In answer to your question, currently Council is able to seek contributions from developers in the form of public open space contributions of 5%, which is required under the subdivision and planning legislation. This can be either in the form of land or a monetary contribution governed by council policy. Secondly, a Section 173 agreement that is registered on the title outlining what physical infrastructure is required to be provided and when, example, roads, drains or retarding basins. And thirdly, a less formal pre-development agreement which identifies physical infrastructure requirements and staging. The Strathbogie Shire planning scheme does not contain any developer contribution plan overlays, which is a way through which many metropolitan and growth councils seek contributions for both physical and community infrastructure to support their new communities. Due to the unprecedented growth that is occurring in some parts of our Shire, council officers are seeking further advice from the Department of Environment, Water, Land and Planning, the Victoria Planning Authority and Regional Development Victoria around how best to use policy and planning scheme provisions to ensure appropriate infrastructure is in place to serve the needs of our community, both now and into the future. This includes ensuring that the costs of providing such infrastructure is best shared between developers, council and state authorities. We do acknowledge that an open space policy is required to provide guidance to officers and developers about what type of contribution, either land or money, would achieve the best community benefit through a more strategic approach to open space contributions. Council and senior officers have heard the concerns raised by some members of our community through recent Share Strathbogie engagement sessions held at markets and halls across our Shire over the past few weeks, and we will be looking to incorporate some further strategic planning work in our new council plan to address these community concerns. Thank you, Laura. The second question is from Michael Christian of Nagambie, who asks, what plans are in place to review and rectify stormwater damage issues that causes street and driveway flooding at 21, 23 and 25 Goulburn Street, Nagambie? Water flows above ground, down street, east to west, drainage is not functioning. Thank you for your question, Mr. Christian. In answer to your question, the current infrastructure design manual standards require, as a minimum, a pipe network that contains a storm event up to a rainfall intensity equivalent to a 1 in 5 years average recurrence interval. There was a period of time where the statewide planning scheme has permitted a standard where a 1 in 2 year average recurrence interval rainfall event has been accepted as a storm event to be carried by the pipe network in new subdivisions. The result of the changes in rainfall intensities and design standards over time is that the existing drainage pipe network has varying capacities and some areas experience surface water flows and flooding more often than other areas. Many of these surface flows are contained do not cause damage and are well within acceptable standards in terms of depth of flow and velocity, and form a component of overland flood paths. As a result of specific storm events, there are particular areas, or as we know them, hotspots, where as a result of increased rainfall intensity, urban consolidation or reduced design standards are known to flood and cause inundation of properties and or cause hazards within public areas. These hotspots are critically monitored by council during storm events. The section of Goulburn Street is crossed by the Tibilk Depression, and the existing underground drainage runs northwards from Goulburn Street through to Marie, Filson, Prentice and High Streets. Previous investigations have detailed the need to upgrade the entire length of this drainage line, with an estimated cost of approximately $170,000. This estimate, however, does not include the costs associated to work within drainage easements passing through two properties and or conflicts with other utility assets across or following the existing drainage alignment since its construction. As a previous investigation does not include recent drainage works undertaken within the catchment area and has missing data due to inaccessibility to existing pits at the time, Council will be having the total network re-surveyed and mapped by the end of this financial year. With this updated data, Council will be able to determine the feasibility of and prioritise the upgrading, duplicating or utilisation of additional storage, detaining stormwater drainage to improve the capacity of the network. And thank you for your question. And the third question is from Kerry from Nagambie, who asks, shouldn't the action plan for the I should clarify this. I'm expecting to ask about the topic of climate emergency. Shouldn't the action plan be delivered for approval prior to the climate emergency being declared? And are we on track to meeting the Sustainable Strathbogey 2030 strategy? If we aren't, is declaring a climate emergency going to change this or amount to a motion being moved without any clear direction? Thank you for your question, Kerry. In answer to your question, Sustainable Strathbogey 2030 goal is to have net zero emissions by 2025. Council is well on its way to achieving this with our second biggest emission, that is electricity, as we are currently participating in the Local Government Power Partnership Agreement, which will see us move to 100% renewable energy. Sustainable Strathbogey 2030 has 6 action areas: a climate resilient shire, a low carbon shire, a water sensitive shire, a zero waste shire, an ecologically rich shire, and an active and connected shire. And there are 80 actions spread across each of these areas, with officers working to deliver as many possible within the current budget allocations. And thank you for your question. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. Before I move on to Officer's report, I'd like to explain how the rest of the meeting will be conducted. We have an objector to a planning permit application wishing to address the meeting tonight. Anyone wishing to speak is waiting outside in social distancing room, and we will ask my officers to enter the room and make their presentation to council. Under our governance rules, all parties have 5 minutes in which to speak. Councillors may ask questions of clarification to the submitter, but there will be no debate. Okay, officers' reports, 9.1. Councillors, planning permit application P 2021-013, use and development of a dwelling at 455 Dune Road, Boho South. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. This report before you right now is for the use and development of land for a dwelling at 455 Dune Road, Boho South. The application was advertised and no objections were received. The application is for the use and development for a dwelling. The application is being heard before council due to the proposed dwelling being considered on a lot less than 40 hectares in the farming zone. It is recommended that council resolve to issue a planning permit in accordance with the officer's recommendation. Mayor, there is a recommendation commencing on page 2 of the agenda for council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Tingay, councillors, do we have a motion, please? And can you state what the motion is? Thanks. Councillors, Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Yes, I'm happy to move the motion in front of us to approve. Thank you. What's the word? Approve a planning permit for 455 Bonnie Doon Road, Boho South.
Thank you. Seconder?
Yeah.
Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you.
Councillor Binks, would you like to speak on this?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dickinson, any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Horrigan, you're all good? Okay, I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? All those against? Declare it carried. All right, 9.2, planning permit application P 2021-002, 2-lot subdivision, use and development of land for a dwelling at 88 to 96 Burkett Street, Euroa. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. The proposal is for the use and development of a 2-lot subdivision and a dwelling at 88 to 96 Burkett Street, Euroa. The site has an area of 2.4 hectares. The site is in the farming zone and urban floodway zone and is affected by the land subject to inundation overlay. The application was advertised and one objection was received. The proposal meets the objectives of the Planning Policy Framework, Local Planning Policy Framework, the Farming Zone and Urban Floodway Zone, land subject to inundation overlay. It is recommended that Council resolves to issue a notice of decision to grant a permit in accordance with the officer's recommendation. Mayor, as printed on page 33 of the agenda, there is a recommendation for Council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Councillor, would someone like to move the motion which is on page 33, please? Councillor Hayes-Burke, seconded by Councillor Lykos. Thank you. Councillor Hayes-Burke, would you like to speak on this thing?
I don't really have much to say. I mean, it's good to see that the applicant seems to be working with the objector in making sure the dwelling that's being built is appropriately set back. And it's in the urban floodway zone, but there's only a small corner of the block that actually sits in that zone. I guess, like to understand how these subdivisions that are a bit irregular and not so to speak by the book, how do they fit into our broader township strategies? Maybe that could be something that we could put on the report so that the community can understand what big picture thinking and broader sort of thinking in terms of the future of our towns is happening.
Thank you.
In these decisions. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lykos. Okay. Any other councillor like to speak on this?
Yeah, I think it goes to this ongoing conversation we've been having in this council around the need to address our planning zones and looking at that township strategies and embedding them into actual policy and having that actioned. So I know that this is on the cards and it's coming up, and it's something that it did, as CEO Solomon mentioned, it did come up quite a bit in our Share Strathbogey sessions, and we are aware of it, and we are going to be addressing this in the coming years, hopefully later this year, but we've got a lot to get through first. So,
thank you, Councillor Binks. Any other councillors? If not, all those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Thank you. All right. 9.3, Planning permit application P 2021-003, use and development of land for landfill, placement of certified clean fill into the Burrow pit, development of land for short-term site office, 1 container, 2 containers with roof kit, creation of a access from road zone category 1 RDZ1, Grimward Road, Nagambie. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I have an objector who would like to present tonight, so I will just go out and get him. Just one moment.
Thank you. Welcome, James.
Hello.
How are you? Just sit down, relax. We don't bite.
All right.
Where you're. Oh, that's okay. That's all right. So we'll leave it up to you to tell us.
Mr. Mayor, honourable councillors, thank you for letting me express my concerns of this project that we're in. I trust you've read my objections to it. I'm part of the farming family at Waring, and I'm right next door to the project, but that doesn't concern me. What really concerns me is we farm at Waring, just downstream from the project, and I'm a major groundwater user of the Mid-Goulburn aquifer we're on. It's underground and sort of nobody really knows anything about it, but I come by a document today, it's all in there, and it is a major part of my business, the water that I extract from that hole for irrigation. There's other people, there's many other users, a large number of users, something like 8,000 megalitres is drawn out of it just from here, from Avenel to Shepparton. Now, everything that I do on the farm is accountable. You know, anyone that comes onto my property, I have to record it and everything like that. I cannot walk into a fruit packing shed anymore. You walk to a pig farm or a chicken farm, you have to be invited in or fill out all the necessary things. Now, any stock that I sell, periodically I get a test back from the abattoirs or something like that they've been micro-tested for chemical residues. Any fodder I sell to a dairy farmer is micro-tested if it's going to a milk factory. And all this, what concerns me is Melbourne's awash with unpleasant soils at the moment, and I'm disappointed. If you follow the highway where these holes were dug, they were dug down to the water table. At the Avenel end, the holes are only very shallow, and as you go towards the Shepparton end, they get deeper where they hit the water table. Now that water table at Nagambie, that hole at Nagambie does not go dry. It has no water run into it other than seepage from the ground, and they stated that in their plan that there was a soak in the hole. Well, that is part of the Mid-Goulburn aquifer, and they're going to put dirt in there from Melbourne, which Melbourne is awash with unpleasant soils, and the EPA classified and had to reclassify soils in Melbourne and around Bacchus Marsh and everything. Even on the wireless last week, they mentioned that they're still storing soil. I don't know where or how they're going to treat it. So I just don't want any chance of it coming to Nagambie. It's my self-personal interest because I'm a major groundwater user. I'm not an habitual protester or anything like that, but this year I haven't gone out and lobbied everyone else. It's just that being a neighbour, I was notified about it. Not everyone else knows. And I'd just like you to give it your best consideration in this day and age. I don't want you to let Melbourne's problem with dirt become our problem, you know, because once it's in that aquifer, how do we rectify it? You know, it's there. So I don't know, I'm just not happy with it there. I know you council have got to do things and everything's done by the book, but if it was to go ahead, I would like periodic NADA bore testing on the site rather than drill holes that the consultant said, boreholes, because Goulburn Murray Water does have boreholes around that monitor every year for chemical residues and whatever. But if the soil was tested, that'd be like testing my sheep when they go to the abattoirs, as far as I'm concerned. But there's a million things I'd like to say and whatever, but please give it your consideration, you know, and that's about it.
Okay, thanks, James. I really appreciate it. And we'll take on what you've said and we'll make our decision in the next couple of minutes for you.
Okay. Thank you for your time and listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you for your time too.
You know, I know that I was disappointed in his applicant. It's, I don't know who's going to administer it. If it goes ahead, that'll put more burden back onto, if it's the council. To me, it's nothing more than it's not a farming restoration project, as he said. It's nothing more than a commercial tip in my idea is to get rid of Melbourne's dirt, and I don't think it's fair as a ratepayer, which council is burdened with extra costs of supervising it or whatever.
Okay. Councillors, do we have any questions of Mr Ewart, thanks?
Yes, Mr Ewart, you mentioned you'd like the soil tested. At what intervals do you have in mind?
I don't know. I'm not a dirt scientist, but I know that they can periodically do tests and make sure that there's no mix-ups in the soil. I don't know how often he's put through figures, the consultant has put through figures there that to me are numbers and whatever that I don't understand, but regular random checks and recorded where they're taken, I suppose.
Would quarterly be sufficient? Quarterly checks, would that be sufficient?
It's how often are they going to bring dirt in? It's sort of up in the sky. I don't know what amount of dirt's going to bring in or whatever.
I think in an administrative capacity, every time they're bringing dirt in, I just don't physically see that it can be tested, but I'm suggesting would quarterly be a sufficient interval.
I don't understand what the EPA testing, whether they're going to test every load or just record loads that come in, but I would like to see regular core holes taken or whatever, you know, just as a check before it seeps into the ground, because it's not going to be in the water table tomorrow or the next day. It's long-term seepage that I'm concerned about. Yep. So,
yep.
I might be dead before it happens, but what happens down the road when all our micro check, you know, all our little goodies and so, you know, our assurances that we've got to give on all our products, well, it's going to be harder down there to pass them tests, and why muck up our water table now?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other councillor?
Hi, Mr. Ewart. I just had, what was the, you mentioned a periodic type of soil testing. I just missed what you called it.
Beg pardon?
You mentioned soil testing. What you said there was a name that you called it. I just missed it.
NADA. National approved. They're a testing authority.
Okay, thank you.
And I think they would do the testing for the EPA and everything like that. NADA's just a standard
body.
Testing,
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just wasn't sure. Thank you.
Okay, any other councillors? If not, thanks, James. I really appreciate your time and coming in to see us.
Thank you for your time.
Pleasure. Okay, council, page 54. Would someone like to move the motion? Councillor Lycos.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move a motion as per the recommendation in the agenda with the addition of the following wording for condition 3. Upon commencement of the works on site, a quarterly report must be submitted to council detailing the following: the number of loads received, including volumes for the quarter, the origins of fill received, the results of groundwater bore testing, detailing past result and current result. And I'm assuming that is the same as soil testing, the bore testing that Mr. Ewart was referring to. And any operational failures should be reported, and any remediation works taken upon discovery of operational failures.
Just for clarification, water and soil testing are completely different. So you'll have to ask for water and soil testing.
Well, that's what I would specifically like to ask for soil testing, because I think, like Mr. Ewart said, once it gets to the water, it's too late to, you take that soil out, well, the water's already been affected. So I would like the soil to be tested quarterly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Would someone like to second that? Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Lycos, would you like to speak on it?
I think I've kind of covered everything, but I would, I have the same sort of concerns as Mr. Ewart as far as the water being affected. So if we can mitigate that by ensuring that the company that's coming to do this project is going to do the testing and bear the costs of that testing and provide those results to council quarterly, I think that will give us some control over what happens.
Thank you. Councillor Dickinson.
Yeah, I think it's probably physically impossible to check it every time a truckload of dirt comes in, but we can mitigate it to some extent by at least doing a quarterly check, being unannounced. You just turn up and do these random quarterly checks, and that may alleviate the worry that Mr. Ewart has on this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Any other comment, councillors?
Through you, Mayor.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Horrigan.
Sorry, I would actually I'd like to object for both the recommendation and the report in this instance. I am definitely sympathetic with Mr. Ewart, and it is a very big concern that if something happens then it is too late, and then what happens to his business. So I would I'd like to do that. Thank you.
Against it, thank you.
Against, thanks.
Yes. Councillor Binks.
Just following on from this has been quite a lengthy discussion amongst councillors in terms of how can we, and from the officer's perspective in giving us advice, what measures can we put in place to be able to manage a project like this. I believe that Councillor Lykos's further additional point that we have more thorough tests and that they are borne by the operator of this enterprise is a way around it. And I know that we as a council also have our own compliance protocols that we follow out, and it's a tricky one.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Haysbert.
Excuse me. I guess I just worry that the testing isn't maybe going to be independent enough. I mean, it's not enough for maybe councillors to just, the compliance officer to go to the site and test. check their records. I'm not an expert about how these things work, but we're relying on this person or this company to make sure that their records are up to scratch. I mean, is there a way that we can have some sort of independent investigation regularly? I don't know. I don't know if that's the right solution, but yeah, that just worries. That sort of worries me.
I'll ask Director Tingay. Do you have a comment there, Director?
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Certainly, it is, if councillors wish, it is something that we could put as a permit condition, but we would need to be mindful of who is bearing the cost for that, for undertaking that assessment, and what level of detail we would like to request as part of that reporting as well.
Okay. All right, Councillor. Any other councillor like to speak? Just myself, if I may, this is a very important issue to our lifestyle of our community, especially on what soils are brought into our community, which we have some control but have no control. I'm still very wary of these sorts of jobs or things that go on like this where we're bringing soil out of Melbourne. I'm still a bit wary, as Councillor Hayes-Burke has said and Councillor Horrigan. There just seems to be, we need to have, I just think we need to have a little bit more clarity on exactly what's actually happening here for our safety of our whole community. So that's just my biggest worry. Councillor Lykos.
Thank you, Mayor. When we did discuss this in great detail, and it was my understanding, I think that each load had to be recorded of where it's come from, and is the soil tested from each load, and it's the EPA is involved in that. Is that right, Director Tingay? Can you clarify?
Yes, so through you, Mayor. So as part of this planning permit for consideration, there are a number of conditions that are included in the permit should it be granted. So within that, the applicant is required, prior to the commencement of the use and development of this application, prepare a site management plan. So they are, as part of that plan, they are required to provide details of fill certification process prior to delivery, and within that there's a specification to stipulate that only certified clean fill in accordance with IWRG 621 soil hazard categorisation and management guidelines is to be emitted on site, and they're also provided to provide detailed delivery log of all materials delivered on site, and the material source, the date of extraction and delivery time must be included as part of that. The delivery logs must be kept on site and made available to the responsible authority at all times.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, councillors, I'd like to put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Right, 9.4. Page 79, planning permit application P02009-104, development of land for a 12-lot subdivision, 297 Mitchellstown Road to book. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. The permit was issued on the 2nd of February 2010 with a requirement for certification on the to be obtained on the 2nd of February 2012. 4 extensions of time have been issued for this permit with an expiry date of 2 February 2020. An extension of time was received in July 2020 for a further extension. The application is being heard before Council due to the recommendation to refuse to grant an extension to the permit. It is recommended that Council resolve to issue a refusal to grant an extension to a permit in accordance with the officer's recommendation. Mayor, there is a recommendation on page 80 of the agenda for Council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Tingo. Councillors, someone like to move? Councillor Murray.
I move that we reject or accept the recommendation from our officers and refuse the extension of the application.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lykos. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak on this?
No, I don't.
Thank you, Councillor Lykos.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, any other councillor? If not, all those in favour? Against, declare it carried. 9.5, planning application received and planning application determined 1 to 31 March 2021.
Through you, Mayor, I have a conflict here and I will need to leave the room. Thank you.
We'll just wait for Councillor Murray to leave the room and then we'll continue. Sorry, the doors are taking a while to close. Okay, Director Tingo.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Another busy month in the Planning and Investment Department. There were 23 planning applications received and 20 planning applications determined during the period of 1 to 31st of March 2021. There is a recommendation on page 91 of the agenda for Council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, someone like to move? Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Yes, I'd like to note that, or recommend that the report be noted.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Lykos. Councillor Binks, would you like to speak?
No, just a general comment that, yeah, this kind of plays in again to our planning scheme need for attention because we're getting more and more applications, which is both brilliant, but when we're dealing with a system that is perhaps maybe not fit for purpose, it becomes a little challenging. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Councillor Lykos. Okay. Any other councillors Any other councillors like to speak?
I'd just like to echo those remarks. Thanks, Mayor. And also just state that it's really helpful for councillors to see this because we have the opportunity to call in matters that we think are worthy of a council determination. So thanks for preparing this report.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? If not, all those in favour? Against, declare it carried. Ask Councillor Murray to come back in. Thank you. Okay, 9.6, contract 20/21/62, Euroa, Strathbogey Road and Creek Junction Road intersection realignment. Director Tingo.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. This contract is for an upgrade of the Euroa Strathbogey Road and Creek Junction Road intersection as it's become necessary to improve safety for our road users at this intersection. This contract and a tender for works was publicly advertised in local and national newspapers, and Council invited tenders between the period of 29 January and the 24th of February 2021. We received 5 tenders to submit for this work. There is a recommendation on page 99 of the agenda following the evaluation process that Rights Earth Moving be awarded the contract. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, someone like to move this motion? Councillor Murray, seconded. Councillor Binks. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
Councillor Binks.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I'm on the Roads Committee. Get excited about this. This road is also in the Mount Wombat ward, and I am familiar with this intersection. It's been on the cards for a long time for its intersection realignment to make it more safe. And I would like to assure Leon Mackerel that the mound of dirt that he has told me about on multiple occasions is going to be used for the extension of the pavement. So we are solving 2 problems with one job. So, yes, thank you.
Any other councillor like to say comment? As long as you're looking after your constituents, that's the main thing in that. Thank you. Okay, councillors, all those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Thank you. All right, next one is 9.7, tender for contract 20/21-65 Harris Creek, Bonnie Dune Road intersection realignment. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. This project is being raised to improve road safety for our users at the intersection and to protect existing road infrastructure against further deterioration. Following the tender advertising process, we received 5 tenders that submitted for the work. Following the evaluation process undertaken by council officers, there is a recommendation on page 105 of the agenda recommending that Rights Earth Moving Proprietary Limited as the preferred tenderer and be awarded the contract. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director. Someone like to move the motion as... Oh, sorry, Councillor Lycos. I was just looking at Councillor Binks because I thought she thought it might have been in her ward because she's on the Roads Committee. Are you going to second it? Okay. All right. Councillor Lycos, you'd like to speak? Councillor Binks.
Yes, please. I also know this intersection really well, famously known in our neck of the woods as the Y.
The Y.
And it's a great cycle from the bottom of Harris Creek Road up to the Y and back again. So it is great to see that this is going to get addressed in a road safety and infrastructure purpose, and we might have to come up with a new name for it.
Yeah, call safety. Any other councillor like to say anything? No. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Thank you. All right, 9.8, page 111, tender for contract 20/21-64 Bank Street, Queen Street, Belmont Street, Avenel, drainage upgrade. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. This project is being raised to address road flooding and to generally improve environmental conditions at the Bank Street, Queen Street, Belmont Street intersections in Avenel. Following the public advertising period, 7 tenderers were received, and following the assessment and evaluation process by council officers, the results show that Rights Earth Moving Proprietary Limited is the preferred tenderer. Mayor, on page 111 of the agenda, there is a recommendation for council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Would the council like to move the motion as printed? Moved Councillor Murray, seconded Councillor Lycos. Sorry? But the good-looking people are on this side. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak?
Well, there's obviously a bit of a rush to move and second these ones, but I'm pleased to move this works. It has been the subject of some flooding in recent times, and surely it will assist and overcome this problem. And I also note that rights have been successful in a number of these tenders, and I am assured by officers that they have the capabilities to meet all the demands of these jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Lycos.
Yeah, just to add to Councillor Murray's comments there, it'll be great to see this intersection tidied up. It's not the prettiest, and for that reason, all the drainage problems as well. And also was going to note that Rights Earth Moving have got the 3 last tenders we've just talked about, and it's great to see a local company coming through there and doing the work. So congratulations to Rights Earth Moving, and we look forward to the completion of these projects.
Thank you, Councillor Lycos. Any other comments, councillors? Councillor Haysberg.
I'd just like to make a comment in these last 3 infrastructure reports under the subheading climate change. I think because they require all new materials, perhaps we could acknowledge that there as having a carbon footprint. And also with regards to drainage and the severe weather impacts that we're likely to experience in the future as a result of global warming, I think this drainage project's probably even more essential. So just maybe that could be something in the future to consider in the reports.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Yeah, I just myself checked out Rights Earth Moving and have done quite a bit of work in the Shire actually prior to these. And they do a lot of work up on Merton Road, the intersection up there on top of the hill. Good work up there. So, yeah, no. All right, councillors, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Sorry, Councillor Horrigan, I forget about you up there. 9.9, tender for contract 20/21-66, supply and delivery of a tractor to tow heavy roller. Director Roth.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Tenders were called as part of our normal plant replacement program for a tractor. We had 3 suppliers respond, offering 5 options were evaluated out of that, and all were assessed for compliance, and the decision was that Kubota's tractor from Bertoli's Farm Machinery represented the best value and is therefore recommended for council approval.
Thank you, Councillor Director Roth. Sorry, not Councillor. I'll put you up on the pedestal again. Some councillor like to move the motion as printed on page 117? Councillor Lycos, seconded Councillor Binks. I did look this side. Councillor Lycos, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'd just like to say it's really nice to see some new equipment for our grounds crew. I think they'll be really happy.
Councillor Binks.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah. Going down, I'm not sure if this one does have. It doesn't actually have a, as far as I can see, just flipping through this, a consideration of climate change, but obviously I think offset of our vehicles is something that we do need to consider, and I love tractors. I drive one on the farm, but I try to offset that against, with planting and things like that. So just something to think about in the future in terms of how we might manage these large infrastructure pieces, which are integral to our works, but we can look at ways that we can, offset and work within those bounds. So, and I know our Officer in Environment, Molly Ockers, has got some great ideas around this, so I'd be keen to hear her considerations on this topic. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Binks. Any other councillor like to speak? If not, all those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Thank you. Okay, 9.10, contracts awarded under delegation. as approved in Council 2021 Capital Works Budget. Director Tingo.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. The purpose of this report is to inform Council and the community of the status of requests for tenders that have been awarded under delegation, so that be of the Chief Executive Officer, a Director or a Manager, and those that have been publicly advertised but are yet to be awarded as at the 1st of April 2021. This report only relates to those works that form part of Council's 2021 Capital Works Budget. Mayor Rayburn, as printed on page 124 of the agenda, there is a recommendation for Council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Okay, councillors, as the recommendation is on page 124, would someone like to move that way, please? Councillor Hayes-Burke, seconded Councillor Murray. Councillor Hayes-Burke, would you like to speak?
I'd just like to say, excuse me, sorry. Thanks for preparing this report. Yeah, it's very helpful to see what projects are underway, and I think there'll be some people who will be particularly happy given that we received that petition earlier tonight about the sewer design, that project's now in the pipeline for the Friendlies Tennis Club and the area of Saxon Street in Euroa. And I'm also very excited to see the shade is going to be happening at Euroa Pool. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Murray.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to second that motion to recommend that people have a look at those contracts. There's some great ones there, the skate park in Voltown and the Heritage Brick Drain renewals in Hurley Street in Longwood, which will be terrific. St John's Primary School is a bit of work going down there, as people may have noticed if they're moving around the town, and the Memorial Oval Netball court repairs as well. So there's quite a bit there with the sewerage works and scoping and so on. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Horrigan, you okay? Good. All right. If not, all those in favour of the motion? Against? Declare it carried. Thank you. 9.11, review and adoption of gifts, benefits and hospitality policy. Executive Manager Bray.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Councillors, this is another of one of the new requirements under the Local Government Act 2020 that Council has to do by the 24th of April in terms of developing a gifts policy for Council. What we've done is reviewed the 2019 policy, which is the gifts, benefits and hospitality policy, which applies to councillors and staff and members of committees alike. And we've amended it to ensure all requirements of the new Local Government Act are met in terms of procedures and also having a gifts register. I suppose what I'd like to highlight is that we're actually going over and above a lot of standards set by the Victorian Public Service and other councils, in that all gifts, benefits and hospitality that are accepted regardless of value are going to be reported and declared, and we've been doing that for some time. And that also we send the registers to the Audit and Risk Committee, and also members of the public can come and inspect that. So we also even declare gifts that have been returned and refused politely, just for maximum transparency. So councillors, on page 130, there's a recommendation in front of you to adopt the revised policy and to also inform the community of its adoption and make it available on the website. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Executive Manager. Councillor, someone like to move the adoption of the recommendation on page 130? Councillor Murray, and Councillor Dickinson will be seconding. Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Yes, I'll move that we adopt the revised policy and that we inform the community of that fact.
Thank you. Councillor Dickinson.
I think it should keep us all honest.
Thank you. Very true. Any other councillor like to make comment? If not, all those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. All right. Page 149, 9.12, Strathbogie Strathbogie Shire Council Audit and Risk Committee confirmation of minutes of the meetings held 9th of October 2020, 18th of December 2020, and the unconfirmed minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of March. Are they now confirmed? Confirmed, okay. Director Roth.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So, as indicated, this minutes are for 3 meetings of the Audit and Risk Committee, and some of the matters covered in there are progress of the internal audit program, previous financial year audit, councillor expenses, as was just mentioned, membership of the committee itself, human resources, statistics, risk management, and update on the budget development. So quite a varied agenda that the committee consider.
Thank you, Director Ralph. Is there any councillor who would like to move the motion as printed on page 149? Councillor Hayes-Burke, seconded Councillor Murray. Councillor Hayes-Burke, would you like to speak? Councillor Murray.
Just to say that it's an important committee, this one, and it's going through some changes in the next little while with a couple of new members. So we've called for applicants, and we've got a range of applicants that we need to go through a process of choosing from. But yes, it's an important committee, and I wish to support the confirmation of these minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other councillor like to make comment? If not, I'd like to put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. That's good, Reg. You can scratch your hair. Page 203. The endorsement, 9.13, endorsement of the Strathbogie Shire Business Continuity Plan. CEO Solomon.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Council provides a wide range of services internally to support the organisation, and of course externally to support our Strathbogie Shire community. Disruptions to the continuity of these services could have significant adverse impact on the community and prevent council from meeting its obligations. The plan before you tonight is to ensure that we maintain business continuity, as the title suggests, which is a core obligation of good governance. Organisations must anticipate and adapt to changes to avoid either abrupt or progressive business failure. There is a recommendation before you tonight on page 203 of your agenda for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO Solomon. Councillor, does someone like to move the motion as printed on page 203? 204. Councillor Hayes-Burke, seconded. Councillor Binks. Councillor Hayes-Burke, would you like to speak?
Thanks, officers, for preparing this detailed and lengthy report. And we understand how imperative it is for the running of council operations, especially when faced with emergency situations. And I think especially in this current climate, we know that we're definitely going to need to use this plan to prevent system failures, and yes, just in the face of natural disasters and pandemics, as has been proven, and potentially cyber attacks. So it's definitely a very, very, very important document as part of our core business.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I'd like to second Sally's comments, Councillor Hayes-Burke's comments there, and also thank the officers for the incredible amount of work that went into this document. We actually deferred it for a meeting so we could actually review it properly, which I had the chance to do in giving a few extra weeks to look at it, and it's incredibly thorough, and so I think it's a really great contribution and addition to our operations and core business. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Any other councillor like to speak? If not, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, page 321. 9.14, curbside transition planning, business case and community engagement plan. Director Roth.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Recently, the state government have put out a policy on recycling in Victoria, which is aimed at addressing some of the challenges that have been had with recycling generally. The main thrust is the introduction of a fourth bin for glass, but in our case that would not be until 2025-26 when our existing contracts expire. So a business case has been developed which identifies 3 scenarios and it's modelled the financial implications of those. And the intent is to use the community engagement plan to seek community feedback on the options. And we have some time to do that given that it won't be until 25-26 and the dates are identified in the report. So this is about accepting the business case and community engagement plan so we can put it out there and get feedback.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, there is a recommendation on page 322. Someone like to move that recommendation? Councillor Binks. Seconder, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Yeah, I think there's lots of improvements happening in our recycling area, and this is another step in the direction of how we can manage our waste better. Obviously, reduction is our best method. When that's not possible, though, diverting it from landfill is critical in not ending up with massive landfills of materials which could be recyclable. I did ask Director Roth for some information on where our recycling is going currently, because I have had some questions from the community given the current changes with some overseas countries ceasing to stop accepting recyclables, and currently we're in a really great position where that we are managing to send ours to a site in Melbourne, which is recycling all the parts of our recycling bin in Australia. So that is really encouraging, I think. So
that's great. Councillor Dickinson.
Look, it's really good to see our council making responsible decisions like this, and we've got time up our sleeves with this particular one because the current contract doesn't expire until 2025, so it allows us plenty of time to put a plan in place and continue this recycling that council is obviously very committed to.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Any other comments, councillors?
I think providing more awareness about waste in general is a good thing for people to get excited about their bins. So I guess it would be great if it could come in earlier, but I know we're tied to current contracts, so that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Any other comment? If not, all those in favour? Against, declare it carried. Okay. Page 387, 9.15, road closure, Aroa Tip Road. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Council approval is sought to commence proceedings to close Euroa Tip Road at and for 50 metres of remaining road formation north of the railway crossing towards the Sevens Creek. In order for the new velocity trains to safely maintain a speed of 130 kilometres per hour, Rail Projects Victoria, as part of the North East Line upgrade, have requested for this crossing to be closed. There is a recommendation on page 387 of the agenda for Council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Councillors, as Director Tingay said, there's a motion on page 387. Someone like to move? Councillor Murray, seconded by Councillor Binks. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak?
Thanks, Mayor Rayburn. This is a closure of the Tip Road. I think there are some grounds there for us to consider to start proceedings on that, particularly to make our trains more efficient and to maintain their velocity speed of 130. If they can get there, it'd be good. But also, the public ought to be reminded that it's the start of a process, and submissions will be invited on the matter, and the decision, I think, is set down for June the 8th or something. So there is a process to go through, and those people who are concerned, if you're concerned about it, can raise it through that process.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Binks.
Yeah, second what Councillor Murray says, and also note that this is sort of a collision of a couple of my areas. I'm on the Waste Committee, so Tip Road seems to fall into that, and the Roads Committee. And
So you're all over it, as Councillor Lycos just said. Any other councillor would like to make comment? If not, all those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. So page 394, 9.16, road exchange. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. At the March Council meeting, Council resolved a nominated date of the 6th of April at 1 p.m. as the date and time for the committee to consider any written or hear any verbal submissions in support of written submissions in relation to the road exchange for unnamed road reserve at Gilgire Farm. As a result of advertising delays, it is proposed that a new date and time for the committee to consider any submissions written and hear any verbal submissions in support of written submissions be set. There is a recommendation on page 394 of the agenda for Council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, as Director Tingay said, there's a motion on page 394. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Dickinson, Councillor Lycos. Councillor Dickinson, would you like to speak on this?
I'm pleased to see that roads like this won't be closed to the public, that they will be signposted and still accessible, even though they may not have been used. They will now ensure that the public do get access to Crown land into and further through properties. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Lycos. Okay. Any other councillor? If not, all those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Okay, page 403, 9.17, Vargo report into maintaining local roads data summary for Strathbogie Shire Council. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. As part of the performance auditing maintaining local roads, Vargo compared council road maintenance costs. Vargo examined whether council uses asset data, budget information and community feedback to inform their planning of road maintenance. This information was provided to Vargo with 79 councils, all 79 councils in Victoria, completing a survey. Vargo asked councils about the accuracy of their road data, resealing works and costs, and impact of joint procurement on costs. Overall, Strathbogie Shire performance as part of the sector-wide questionnaire is in good form compared with other small shires and in total. Out of the Vargo report, there were 10 recommendations that have been made. There are areas that Strathbogie Shire Council can strengthen, which we will focus on moving forward. On page 404, there is a recommendation for Council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Councillors, as Director Tingay said, there's a recommendation on page 403. Someone like to move that recommendation? Councillor Binks. Must be roads. Must be roads. Someone like to second? Councillor Murray. Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. It's great to see that we are performing well in relation to other shires of a similar size and a similar road we had some interesting discussions about even if they're the same size, do they have the same road conditions? And yeah, but we are doing well. There are areas which we can improve upon, and I think noting these recommendations and focusing on those areas that we know can improve upon is going to be really important in maintaining our extensive road network in the Shire to the best standards. So.
Thanks, Councillor Binks. Councillor Murray.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I noticed that a couple of those are about effectively engaging communities in understanding the road user needs, and I'm sure that we'll tackle that one. And the other one is take the more proactive approach in maintenance to prevent expensive future maintenance demands and so on. So I look forward to us addressing some of those recommendations. Thank you.
Thanks, you, Councillor Murray. Any other councillor like to make comment? The only one I'll make comment is on your councillor's estimate TNC was 11.19273 million, and actually our expenditure was 11,274,152, which is a variance of 0.7%. So the officers are doing a wonderful job on doing the estimation and actually getting our costs to be accurate to what we estimate, and I really appreciate that. So, councillors, any other comments? If not, all those in favour? Against, declare it carried. Thank you. Next one. Page 431, 9.18, Nagambie Ageing Hub. Director Roth, sorry.
Thank you again, Mr Mayor.
I was thinking this might be Councillor Tingay, but no, it's not.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There have been a number of previous reports about this partnership with Nagambie Health, where the intent is Nagambie Health will develop additional accommodation to allow for addressing some needs for people in the Nagambie area and providing some allied health services. And eventually there will be refurbishment of the existing units in Vale Street, plus the construction of new ones. And over time, the development of the open space there to make it a lot more attractive. Nagambie Health will be spending a substantial amount in constructing the units, and the request had been that council contribute 2 blocks of land adjacent to the property to allow for that construction to occur. We've been through the disposal of land policy that council has adopted previously, advertised our intention to transfer the land. We received 3 submissions and discussions with both myself and Nagambie Healthcare with those submitters has been really positive. And as a result, we can proceed with the recommendations that are in the report, which are basically to obtain an independent valuation for the 2 lots so that we know the value that we are contributing to the project. Finalising an agreement with Nagambie Health, part of which will be that should any change of ownership occur, the development must be retained for the use existing. And also, when we've completed those steps, we transfer the lots to Nagambie Healthcare to allow the project to proceed.
Thank you, Director Roth. Councillors, as Director Roth said, there's a recommendation on page 432. Someone like to move that recommendation? Councillor Dickinson. Seconder, Councillor Lykos. Councillor Dickinson, you would like to speak on this?
Well, Nagambie is the growth centre of the Strathbogie Shire, so it's really good to see that we're being recognised for that, and our health services are going to improve dramatically, and it's really an essential service that we're voting on here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Lykos.
Yeah, echoing what Councillor Dickinson said, we have a growing ageing population in Nagambie and, well, in our shire and in the country, in fact. But Nagambie Healthcare do amazing things in our community, supporting our, in particular, our aged population. Those units are desperately in need of refurbishment and some aesthetic TLC. And it'll be great to see that being used and that space being used. At the moment, it's just an open space that doesn't, it's being sort of wasted, I guess. So it'll be great to see it being used for such a great purpose and by an organisation that are already doing great things in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lycos. Any other councillors have any other thing? It's just like myself, Councillor Dickinson. I've got the Honeysuckle Aged Care Facility in my town. Yeah, you'll have this in your town. So when we retire, we've got a place to go to. Thank you. So, councillors, any further comments? If not, all those in favour, against for, against, declare it carried. Thanks. Wow. Page 437, 9.19, Victorian Renewable Energy Zone Development Plan Directions Paper, Strathbogie Shire Council written submission, Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. The Victorian Government recently sought feedback from community and industry stakeholders on the potential projects identified in the Renewable Energy Zone Development Plan Directions Paper. As such, Strathbogie Shire Council has made a submission to the Government on this paper, particularly drawing the Government's attention to that while the Shire is well placed to accommodate large-scale renewable energy generation and distribution, there are significant problems with power supply and structure of the local distribution grid within our municipality. Further, the directions paper does not address the issues of energy security within our shire as one of the potential projects. There is a recommendation on page 437 for Council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Rayburn.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Councillor, someone like to move the recommendation on page 437? Councillor Binks. Seconded by Councillor Murray. Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I am grateful that officers have prepared this report to be submitted to the, thanks, Councillor Dickinson, to the Victorian Renewable Energy Zones Development Plan Directions Paper. And we have also chosen or elected to write to relevant ministers and members of Parliament who may be able to influence having a both the renewable energy zone and also the security around energy, which is an ongoing discussion within our shire and with those relevant members of Parliament.
Thanks, you, Councillor Binks. Councillor Murray.
I'd just like to add to that by saying that this is an issue for many members in the community who, not particularly the Avenel group down there, who are concerned about trying to get up a renewable energy hub of some sort. This submission here obviously will be of assistance to them in their efforts, but it also points to some of the issues and problems that we have, and we would like state and federal assistance in overcoming. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other councillors like to speak? If not, all those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Okay, page 444, 9.2, consideration of the Nagambie Euroa Caravan Park items for the draft 2021-22 budget.
Through you, Mayor, as I have a material conflict of interest for this one, I will be leaving the meeting and waiting to be told when to jump back in.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. She's still, but she's gone. Okay, Director off.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the report indicates, this is in relation to the council being the lessee of the Euroa Caravan Park. Just a comment on the title of the report. The Nagambie Caravan Park Council does not receive rent for that. It receives a contribution from Goulburn Murray Water, which is elsewhere in the budget. So what the report identifies is income and expenditure in relation to the caravan park, which we've separated out from the budget for the purpose of this report, so council can consider it separately, so then Councillor Horrigan can contribute to the discussion on the rest of the budget later on in the agenda.
Thank you, Director Roth. Councillors, there is a recommendation on page 444. Someone like to move the motion? Recommendation, please. Councillor Murray, seconded by Councillor Dickinson. Thank you, Councillor Murray.
No, formally. I don't wish to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Oh, sorry, you had your hand up. You must have been taking your jumper off, sorry.
That's all right, I'll second that.
Okay, any other comments, councillors? If not, all those in favour, against, declare it carried. You can invite Councillor Horrigan back. Thank you.
Councillor Horrigan's been invited, Mr Mayor, so we just need to wait for a minute or two.
Pleasure, absolutely. Sorry. No, I'll get into trouble. We've got to be responsible. Everybody watching, we're going to page 4. We're back at page 448. Welcome back, Councillor Horrigan.
Thank you.
9.10, sorry, so 9.21, draft 2021-22 Strathbogie Shire Council budget, preparation of budget revenue and rating plan and fees and charges for exhibition and comment. Director Rolfe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The budget is presented for council to consider prior to advertising. It's been under preparation for some time and presented are the budget document, revenue and rating plan, which is a new requirement under the new Local Government Act, and the proposed fees and charges. Included in the budget from some discussions and feedback from the community as well as councillors, a range of initiatives. The document contains an increase in the average rate per assessment of 1.5%, which is in line with the government's rate cap legislation. Capital expenditure of $20 million, of which $17 million is new. It maintains existing service levels with some slight increase in resourcing in the areas of governance, statutory planning and asset management. The budget also contains the relevant indicators about sustainability, which are in the range where we would expect them to be. The audit committee's reviewed the document and endorsed it as being a sound document, and following this meeting the budget will be advertised for 28 days and public input will be sought via submissions in a range of forms, either online or in written form or other magical ways to do it. So I commend the budget to the House, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Director Rolfe. To the House. Oh, that's nice. I like that. Councillors, we have a recommendation printed on page 449. Someone like to move the recommendation as printed? Thanks. Councillor Murray and Councillor Binks. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak? Thanks.
Yes, I'm excited actually to move this budget. Really, I think there's some opportunities here for us this year to really engage with the public, and whether they're magical means or not, I'm not quite sure. I hope they're not sort of Hogwartsian or something. But yeah, there are going to be lots of ways that the public can be engaged in this process, and I look forward to hearing some of the public feedback on the budget, and I commend it to our ratepayers.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Thank you, Director Roth and your team who have prepared this report. You've been incredibly helpful and patient with a bunch of new councillors questioning lots of things and getting our heads around this really important and complex document. So I'd like to thank you for your work and your staff's work on that. I too would really like to welcome our community to put in their budget submissions. There will be multiple ways, as Councillor Murray mentioned, including when our online portal is launched, we will have a budget tool which will make it really easy and straightforward. And for those constituents in my ward who might need some assistance, please get in touch and we'll help you out. And I'm sure this is all councillors will echo that support that we really want to help our community have their budget ideas put to us and heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Hayes-Burke.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to really encourage the community to give it a read. It's a fabulous, exciting document. And ask if you need clarification. We're happy to give it to you, although we might seek it through Director Off. And we look forward to also verbally hearing your submissions on the 8th of June, which we've set aside a day. It'll be here and we can't wait to hear from you. It'll be so much fun.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. You haven't been through a budget discussion before, and I can quite honestly tell you it's not fun. But any other councillor like to make a comment? Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo both of those comments from Councillor Binks and Councillor Hayes-Burke, and I think it is really exciting to be able to use new ways of getting the community's input into how we spend, where we spend, and understand what's really important to them. So, yeah, again, just really encouraging everyone that wants to be a part of it to come up and make themselves a part of it, because we're keen to listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lykos. Yes, Councillor Horrigan.
Through you, Mayor, I would like to encourage I can't even emphasise enough, encourage the community to please submit written submissions on anything that's not in the budget that you would like to see in there. We have sat around the table as much as we can and done our part with the voices that we've heard, and now I just encourage everyone else to do the same. And I just did want to explain something that's in the budget. We did have a look and we have made some little changes and would be happy for feedback to look at maybe a different way in which we are doing our capital works program to ensure that we're not setting the officers up for failure. And so there's been a little bit of discussion where, we design and look at the project and perhaps deliver the next year, just to spread it out a bit, and also so that we're getting the designs right and not rushing anything. So please make sure if you're not happy, you put in a written submission to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. Myself, there is one change we have done in the budget where we've accumulated all our buildings, toilets and that, into one area. So we're going to do a assessment of all our council buildings over the next 12 months and do a schedule on how to do them over the next couple of years rather than just ad hocly pick out each building. We're doing a complete survey of all our buildings, so we have an understanding and a costing of what that will cost us in the future, which is what we usually do with the roads. So now we're doing it with our buildings, which is a great way of going forward. The other one, I've had some emails lately on the budget. If you believe that we're putting the budget up by 1.5% is too high, please write back to us and tell us that. Because we need to understand how many people are struggling and what we do need to do to help our community if there are people in our community that are struggling through this pandemic and coming out of COVID-19, because some people are absolutely going gangbusters and other people are not going very well at all, and we need to find out that and work out how we can help those people out in the future. So that's all I've got to say. Any other comments? Not. Councillors, sorry. All those in favour? All those against? Declare it carried. Page 4, 5, 6, 9.2, 2017 to 21 Shire of Strathbogie Council Plan 2020 review, third quarterly report, 1 January to 31 March 2021. CEO Solomon.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Quarterly reports are presented to Council to provide councillors and our community an update on the status of the key strategies of the 2017-2021 Council Plan following its annual review in 2020. The key strategies of the plan have been reviewed and progress updated, and the details provided for the third quarter period from January to March are documented in the attachment to this report. There is a recommendation before you, councillors, on page 456 for noting the progress achieved to date and that all actions are to be completed by the 30th of June, and at the 31st of March we have 12 actions that are fully completed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO Solomon. Councillors, someone like to move the recommendation as printed on page 456. Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Someone like to second it? Councillor Lykos. Councillor Dickinson, would you like to speak?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Lykos?
No, thank
you. Okay, any other councillors like to comment? If not, all those in favour? Against, declare it carried. No, you had your finger in the air.
I'm not an option.
Page 502, 9.23, Share Strathbogie Feedback Report. Executive Officer Favaloro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be super quick tonight because I think everyone has spoken about Share Strathbogie in the sessions already. So as you know, we've embarked on a 5-stage program to get community feedback into our community vision, our council plan, our financial plan, our asset plan and the draft budget. So this report just outlines the feedback that we've got and the priorities that we've set with our community in those first stage. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Officer Favaloro. Councillors, someone like to move the recommendation as printed on page 502? Councillor Murray, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Councillor Murray.
Look, I'm excited about this too, and I'm not surprised that everybody's talking about it because it's a great, it was a great initiative and it's a great report, and I congratulate Executive Officer Favalaro for putting this one together, and I think there are some clear messages that are coming out of this report. I recommend that members of the community have a look at it and have a think about that. Some of the issues that are raised in this document will be spoken about perhaps later on before we finish tonight again. So yes, it'll be referred to quite a bit, I'm sure, because it holds the kernel of what people's thinking is, and we're really mindful of that. All right, so yes, I recommend it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Hayes-Burke.
Oh, thanks very much, Fab. So, Executive Manager, I would just like to maybe say, could we make it public for a bit more accessible for the community to view rather than just in the council papers? Maybe we could put on our website because, yeah, it does have some great information in there that I think we should share with the community.
Okay. Any other councillor? Councillor Pinks.
Thank you, Executive Officer Favaloro. I also want to thank you for this report and for guiding us through this process of engagement with our community, which I hope will set a new standard of expectation and an experience which is favourable for both council and our community. We know it's been a bit of a sore spot in the past with how we have engaged in the community, and from my experience of it and the feedback I've had to date is that how we went about it for this process was much better, and I know we're really committed to that, closing the loop and seeing how their submissions to this information, well, I guess the questionnaires and the input we were seeking is then reflected back in all those documents and processes that we're going through at the moment. And I'm also had feedback from fellow councillors on other councils and can absolutely congratulate us on going above and beyond what a lot of other councils are doing, and I think that's an incredible effort for the size and scale of our council and also the new nature of the council. We're all fairly new in this game, so I just really like to pass on a huge thank you and congratulations on leading us on this journey.
Councillor Horrigan, do you want to speak?
I would, through you, Mayor. I would also like to say thank you so much, and thank you to the council officers and all the councillors that showed up to each of those sessions. And I just, to not repeat obviously what everyone else has said, just to move to something a little bit different. I understand that not everyone feels comfortable about coming to see us face to face, and there's been a lot of discussion in there, and so perhaps this report is fantastic, but may only be the view of a certain possible demographic or age group. But to counteract that, we will be going to the local Euroa secondary school to make sure that we can tap into the great minds of young people. And Fab's also working on something online, which is really great for those people that do not feel comfortable talking to people face to face. So more exciting things to come.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. Any other councillor like to speak? The only comment I'd like to say is thank you to all council officers who put in the time and effort to come with the councillors to those sessions. Some were cold and wet days, some were real nice days, but what I'd like to really take out of this is to show to other organisations who the Shire of Strathbogie deals with that if you can go out and talk to our community, you'll get the truth and honest feedback. And I'm referring to ARTC and other organisations that operate with this Shire. We are honest. We believe in what we're doing is the right thing, and that's all we can ever ask for. So thank you, everybody. All those councillors for the recommendation. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Page 547, 9.24, Community Activation and Socialisation Initiative requested for extension to funding. Director Tingay.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. In response to the social impacts of the COVID-19 global pandemic, the Victorian Government established the Community Activation and Social Isolation Initiative, also known as CARSI. This commenced on the 29th of June 2020. The aim of the program is around helping people in our community and communities across Victoria who may be feeling lonely or have lost their regular networks during the COVID-19 pandemic. It aims to build social connections and networks of support for these people in their local communities. In Victoria, local governments rolled out the CARSI initiative. In Strathbogie Shire, the CARSI program has been extremely beneficial for our community. There have been a number of key achievements that have been delivered under this program, including the Strathbogie Story, Strathbogie postcards, our Acting Ageing newsletter, and a lot of work with community groups, including our community houses that have provided much needed support services. The CARSI program was originally funded until the 31st of December 2020. However, an extension has been granted by the state government until the 30th of June 2021. There's been no further commitment for funding past this date. There is an opportunity that presents on the 21st of May 2021 at the Municipal Association of Victoria. They will be hosting the MAV State Conference. This MAV State Council. This provides Council with an opportunity to put forward a motion at this meeting for the local government sector to advocate to the state government for the continuation of this program. There is a recommendation on page 547 for Council's consideration tonight, and that is that Council continue to act, that Council advocate through the Municipal Association of Victoria for the continuation of funding from the state government for the CARSI initiative for an additional 12 months. Mayor, for your Council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Tingay. As Director Tingay just read out the recommendation, would someone like to move that recommendation, please? Councillor Dickinson, Councillor Binks. Councillor Dickinson, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. This is something close to my heart. Prior to coming onto council, I was heavily involved in raising funds for this need that's out there, and I still get a lot of contact through people who are in social isolation, and something like this is really needed, particularly for our farmers who are on their own in lots of ways. There's a lot of people out there in need of a lot of help, but they're not putting their hand up, and so to extend this program, particularly for men, I would encourage you to seek help, seek advice, and for this program to be extended for another 12 months, I think is really good for our council and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I would like to second Councillor Dickinson's comments there and concur. It's really critical for us as an organisation and in this community to provide as much support as we can to those in social isolation, and we know that that has increased significantly given the conditions that we were in last year with the COVID-19 pandemic. So full support of this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Any other councillor like to comment? Councillor Lycos?
Yeah, I was at the beginning of COVID, I was approached by Bendigo Bank and volunteered to be a community connector, I suppose, and basically, I guess, similar to what this role will be. It's just really good to see that continue. There was a need when I was working in that space in Nagambie, and getting people that were isolated connected with Nagambie Healthcare or connected with the chemist or supermarkets, and getting things like that during our lockdown period. But it's great to see this continue, and yeah, very much support of this. Thank you.
Any other councillors like to comment? I'll just make a couple of comments. The person who's been running this on council is incredibly community-minded. He has a credible way of communicating with people without being intrusive or upsetting or anything. He just seems to have the way to talk to people. I've been to a couple of functions in Violet Town, which he's been coordinating with the Honeysuckle nursing home. One was on skin and one was on personal health, making sure that everybody is safe. And out of those two sessions, a number of people have been helped. And as quite a few of people say, if we only help one person, we've helped someone. And I believe we've helped a lot more than one, and I think this is a very, very important initiative which was done by the state government, and I believe it should be continued. So, all right, councillors. Oh, yes, Councillor Haysbert.
Just on that topic, Mayor Rayburn, we should tell the community that there will be a screening of Happy Sad Man at the cinema here, and which will actually have some local celebrities in the film. And yeah, it's a great way to raise awareness and show our support for this very incredibly important initiative. And that's the 28th of April, I'm pretty sure.
Correct. That's correct. There's two showings, one at 2:30 and one at 6:30. Yep. Okay, councillors, all those in favour? All those against? Declare it carried. And since I'll be going to the state conference, I'll be talking about that. Okay, page 552, 9.25 Business Management Systems. Councillor, CEO Solomon.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. This is our monthly business management system report, which really just provides an overview of some of the key areas that we focus on. This month, I'd like to highlight some of the work that our governance and customer service team have been working and focusing on in partnership with some of our other departments across the organisation to reduce the number of outstanding customer request tasks as depicted in the customer inquiry analysis report, just further on a few pages into this report. Our focus is always to ensure that all departments meet the response timelines outlined in our customer service chart, and work is being progressed across the organisation, as I said, led by the governance and customer service team, on improving our performance in ensuring customers are kept informed of progress of their request, the action taken by council in response to their issue. There's been a consistent message from community members through our Share Strathbogey sessions, and continues to be an area we know we need to do further improvement on. The customer request analysis report for February shows a reduction this shows a reduction this month in the number of outstanding tasks from 2018 and 2019, from 39 in February to 28 in this month, and we will continue to ensure that these are reduced and responded to. So on page 515 of your agenda papers, there is a recommendation that this report be noted. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Solomon. Councillors, would someone like to move the motion as CEO Solomon has just... Thank you, Councillor Binks. Someone like to second it? Councillor Murray. Any comment, Councillor Binks?
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. Yeah, I would like to just say it's an ongoing process in sort of managing these things, but I'm really glad that we're seeing that collaboration between customer service and other departments to help them reduce those outstanding items. We're also getting some better services for councillors to be able to see where items are at, so we can help inform customers as to items that they may have submitted through us. So we're getting ahead. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Councillor Murray.
No, nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. Any other councillor like to comment? If not, all those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Okay, that's the end of officers' reports. Now we go into number 10, notices of motion. Ms. Solomon, CEO Solomons, are there any other notices of motion?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. We have received a notice of motion as set out in the papers to declare a climate change emergency and to develop an emissions reduction pledge following community consultation that is consistent with Council's Sustainable Strathbogey Strategy and Action Plan 2013. This motion was deferred at the March 2021 meeting. And item 10.2 is the officer report required under Rule 35 of our governance rules regarding the financial, legal and policy impacts of any proposed notice of motion to inform debate. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO Solomon. Councillors, there was a motion put. Someone like to move? Councillor Hayes-Burke, seconded. Councillor Dickinson. Any comment? Yes, Councillor Murray.
Mayor Rayburn, I would like to move an amendment to that motion, please.
Okay, would you like to read out your amendment, please?
So I'll read the amendment. I would like to add a series of dot points to the motion that's listed in the paper. The third would be give priority to the formulation of policy and actions that will provide for both mitigation and adaptation to climate change, and to embed such climate change actions and policies across the organisation. Dot point 4, engage with communities across the Shire for the purpose of raising awareness of and providing support for community-led actions designed to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, reduce our carbon footprint and build environmental resilience. And dot point 5, ensure climate change adaptation and mitigation are emphasised as a key priority in the 2021-2025 Council Plan. Dot point 6, oversee the development of a climate emergency action plan in partnership with the community in the 2021-2022 budget cycle, which emphasises both mitigation and adaptive policies and actions. Number 7, set a zero carbon emissions target and some intermediate targets which form part of the development of a climate emergency action plan. And lastly, report biannually to the community on all emission reduction and climate mitigation projects. Thank you.
The mover and seconder, are you in agreement with the amendment as put?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, I am, Matt.
Okay, so now that becomes part of the motion.
Mm-hmm.
So as the mover of the motion, Councillor Hayes-Burke, would you like to speak, please?
Just thanks, Councillor Murray. I think those points help give weight to the motion, so I appreciate that. I guess I've prepared something, so I might just read that out. Okay, declaring an emergency is definitely a very scary thing, but I just don't know how we can describe what we're living through and what climate change is presenting. Australia has experienced an average temperature increase of 1.5 degrees, and at the rate we're going, we will experience an average increase of 4 degrees by the end of this century. Global warming is happening more rapidly each decade. Yes, high temperatures are part of living in Australia, but there is a point where humans struggle to lead normal lives. Economic productivity decreases, farming decreases, activities that are central to Australian life, such as playing sport or going to the beach, are dramatically affected. December 2019 was the hottest and driest year on record, with an increase of 3.2 degrees above average. You remember that year? It was damn hot. Well, that was considered a mild summer. And by the time our children are 30, and if we keep building fossil fuels at this rate, yeah, that will be considered just completely normal to them, or even mild. So you might be thinking 20 days of that type of heat are manageable, but for much of the globe, these temperatures will be the norm. And before you know it, humans will have to learn to live in an environment that is too hot for them. Even Melbourne will be facing summers with temperatures of above 50 degrees. This modelling is alarming, And that's why there's a sense of urgency, because we know that irreversible damage will be done to our planet if we don't act quickly. 89% of Victorians believe local government should be acting on climate change, not to mention that it is mandated in the legislation that governs us. By the end of this century, inaction on climate change will cost the Victorian population upwards of $1 trillion. Now we have the benefit of science and data to help us comprehend this dire situation, to help us understand how critical protecting the natural environment is for human existence. That is why I argue that it's imperative for us to declare a climate emergency, to act to reduce the impacts of climate change and to reduce the carbon footprint of this Shire. As a Shire, we know what we have to do. We have an opportunity to hear more from you, the community, and work with the community to bring about change so that our children have a habitable planet. Fellow councillors, we are elected members. Our constituents deserve the best from us, and so do their children. We've heard this from our recent engagement sessions. For me, the risk is too great for us to sit back and not do anything, and we as a council should not be prepared to take that risk. So let's not get the politics of the whole climate debate get in the way. I ask you, please, I would love, sorry, I get quite emotional. I would love for my children to have a place, to not have to learn to live in a planet that's too hot for them, and to experience the Great Barrier Reef in all its glory, because that still might be possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mayor. This certainly has created a lot of comment from within the community, and I'd like to thank all those people who have contacted us and encouraged us to put forward this motion. And I'd just like to also read from my notes. I believe that the time to act is now. The longer we delay it, the harder and the more challenging it will become. If we delay it, the more frequent and severe weather events will become like floods, bushfires, heat waves and droughts. The consequences will include declining crops, loss of species, degraded ecosystems and higher insurance bills. We are already just over 1 degree of global warming, and it is predicted we are on track to reach 4 degrees of warming by the end of the century. We have lost half the coral cover on the Great Barrier Reef. This global icon provides billions to the Australian economy and employs tens of thousands of people. The 2019 Black Summer bushfires affected 8 million Australians, with more than 30 killed directly and another 400 deaths attributable to smoke inhalation. Rainforests have been destroyed and billions of invertebrate animals killed or displaced. We've still got the sun, wind, land and water. We also have got the brains, the science and the technology to make changes. Delay is the new denial. If we have a serious medical issue, we get treatment. Climate emergency should be approached with the same sense of urgency. Just a few practical and achievable steps we could take in the Strathbogie Shire could include purchasing 100% renewable energy, investing in stormwater harvesting and water-sensitive design, capturing and reusing the water, continuing to invest in and in turn saving on energy efficiency by installing solar panels, greening our landscapes, accelerating waste avoidance and resource recovery. As a Shire, we are not immune to global warming. We are part of it. We can also be part of the solution. If we all contribute in the simplest of ways, for example, walking instead of driving to a short destination, it all helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Any other councillor would like to make a comment? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Rayburn. I'd like to make just a few comments about this motion, and one of them is that I don't think very many people would fail to recognise that there have been recent changes in our history in terms of temperature and rainfall and fire dangers. And we're all aware of these, I think. We see them even locally, see some of those risks that are emerging, whether it's floods or fires recently around us. That recognition of change in the climate has resulted in an expression of concern by a number of stakeholders to council. And I'm referring really to ratepayers. There are many ratepayers who are concerned about climate change and want us to do things. Our recent work with the Share Strathbogey hubs would point to that. And we know the data that roughly 78% of Victorians want something done about climate change. That's just a fact. We know the Victorian government is keen for us to take up the mantle. They've told us we have a duty of care towards our communities. They've told us that we have to take into account the interests and health and well-being of our communities. They've told us that we need to respond to the future needs of our communities and keep that in mind when we make decisions. So these things are clear. Our community in Avenel, for example, where I come through, 48% of people down there put up solar panels on their roofs. They're aware of renewable energy and the need for us to move in that sort of direction. So stakeholders in our communities are making the change, are expressing their voice, are demanding us to do something. We are here recognising this crisis. We are here today responding to this crisis and responding to this emergency situation by recognising this. The word emergency means to bring to light. That's where it comes from, that idea of emerge, to bring to light. We are bringing that issue to light here today, and I commend the Shire for its efforts. This situation demands immediate attention. Over 90 councils Australia-wide have adopted this approach and declared a climate emergency. We have seen that message and are becoming part of that movement, which I think is important. Our response will see us stepping up and supporting others. We will take action to mitigate and to adapt, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through this process, to respond to impacts of climate change. And this is a process. It's one of assessing, planning, implementing and evaluating. It's not a set and forget, write up some plan and then set it and leave it there and that'll do, tick it all off and we're done. This is something we need to incorporate into the way in which the Shire operates. Here today we are writing a story, and that story is about how we attempted to battle this crisis of emergency. And I wish that my grandchildren recognise this story that we are writing and see it as one that has a happy ending. Please support us in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillors against the motion? Councillor Binks.
Yeah. Hi. Sorry, I just, wanted to add to the conversation or the debate as we are. So I'd like to thank everyone who shared their thoughts with me on this motion. I have considered carefully all of your submissions in these past weeks. Strathbogie Shire Council sits in the lands of the Taungurung people, and it is an incredible area of natural beauty, connected communities, innovative businesses, and a region renowned for the high quality food, wine and beer produced here. Declaring a climate emergency enables us to set strategic and budgetary goals at an operational level of council so we can be part of the solution in reducing carbon emissions and work together with the community to secure a safe climate. I'm excited by the many opportunities available to us at this local level of government to work towards a better global situation. I look forward to further conversations, some of which have already begun with the agricultural community, as to how council can support community groups, businesses and individuals in our collective work in ensuring a safe climate and a thriving planet with improved ecological diversity.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Any other councillor? Councillor Lykos?
Yeah, I won't repeat anything that's been said, but just to add, and I have had a lot of correspondence from community members for and against this declaration. Mitigating climate change is the responsibility of all of us as individuals. And I think council does have a role to play in supporting our community groups and businesses to make positive changes to the way we live and operate and to minimise our carbon footprint. As a Shire, we already take action in mitigating our carbon footprint, and just tonight, item 9.14 was just one example of something we're doing in that space. An analysis of our progress with the 2030 Sustainable Strathbogey strategy that will be reported back to us in May to show us just how well we are going with that. Although I have had a lot of correspondence from the community, however, the overwhelming response has been in support of this notice being moved. And I look forward to working closely with the community moving forward and doing what we can do to mitigate. And yeah, like I said, I won't repeat everything that's been said. I think everyone's covered it pretty well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lykos. Councillor Horrigan.
Yes, please, through you, Mayor. So I would like to talk about the community engagement in regards to declaring the climate emergency. So when it first was tabled back in, or discussion started back in January, I thought, we're just new here. We need to get out there and speak to the community because we don't want to tell them what they're doing. We want to bring them on a journey with us. We want to make it a proper declaration. If you're going to declare a climate emergency, then make sure your community are on board. And since then, I commend both Councillor Hayes-Burke and Dickinson for listening to that and deferring the notice of motion. And I'm very happy that we got out there and we started to engage with our community through the Strathbogey story. Hayes-Burke and Dickinson, both councillors, sent out media releases. They both went on their social media. I too was on social media, and we were getting a lot of feedback from the community, which everyone could see, which I'm very, very grateful for. The overwhelming emails of support for this notice of motion is undeniable. And of course, there has been a few that have asked, certain questions or put forward certain views, and I listen to all their views. I'm not there to argue with any community members about, what they're putting forward, and I listen, sympathetic, and I understand with them. Although I would have liked to have seen an action plan created before we went there so that when we're talking about actions and things that we're doing, we can actually explain to the community what's on our mind. But I am happy with the engagement that we've done and that we've met the principles of the Local Government Act 2020. I do want to say that for the members of the community who believe we're here only for roads, rates and rubbish, I believe I'm nominated to be elected to give much more than that. And this is an example of much more on what I want to give, and I think the other councillors in the room would probably agree with that. And I do want to say that for the members of the community that perhaps don't believe in that climate change is real, I'm sympathetic to your beliefs and your opinions, and you have a right to have that. And upon reflection, I believe that even if you don't believe that there is a climate emergency, the changes that are being proposed, in my opinion, is very innovative and very beneficial to all people either way. So I don't think that it will be harmful on the community for doing it. And lastly, I urge all residents to be actively involved when we start our action plan for this. Same with the budget, please get involved with the action plan. Keep up the emails. This just shows you what written submissions can do for a council meeting. So please keep communicating. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. All right, councillors, I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the motion, raise your hand. All those against, declare it carried.
Rayburn, can I ask for a division?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, you can ask for a division. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Horrigan, Councillor Hayes-Burke, Councillor Murray, Councillor Lycos, Councillor Dickinson, Councillor Binks and Councillor Rayburn all support. No against.
Thank you.
And the only comment I'll make is that this is for the business of the Strathbogie Shire, working towards a better business for our community. All right, number 11, notices of recession. None. Urgent business.
There is none, Mayor.
Confidential business.
There is none, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. It's been a most enjoyable evening around this table, and congratulations to all. It's been a long trial for all of us, but we got there, and let's enjoy what the future holds for us. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. And please remember, we have got the budget coming out. Please make comments to it, good or bad. We'd love to hear from you. And for the council plan and the council vision coming up, please communicate with us so we have an understanding of what you require and what you need of us as a council to look after you as a community. Thank you very much and have a great evening.